At Stanley Safaris, we only work with privately owned camps and lodges with a strong focus on guest experience, contributions to local conservation and community initiatives, and an array of activities that go beyond the game drive. And for me, Ol Malo Lodge, located in the Laikipia region of northern Kenya, is the epitome of that. So join me today as I chat to Annie Tundo, part of the family that owns and runs Ol Malo Lodge.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another podcast, Stanley Safaris Podcast, where we chat to the owners of the camps and lodges that we love to send our guests to. Today, I'm joined by Annie Tundo from Ol Malo, and very excited to hear more about Ol Malo, the start, the conservation and community work you guys do, and then also what makes Ol Malo so special. So thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure.
Perfect. Well, Annie, I know it's a family business. You've got your brother and your other sister as well that are all involved. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just start by telling us a little bit about the start of Ol Malo. How did it come about? How did you end up there? What was the inspiration behind Ol Malo?
Okay, so we grew up on a ranch to the west of here called Laikipia Ranching Company, which is owned by an Italian lady called Cookie Gallman. She became quite famous. She wrote a book, and her husband and son tragically were killed while we were there. Anyway, my dad worked for her for 25 years as a cattle rancher. So it was mainly a cattle ranch. He always wanted to do his own thing, and he always wanted to, he was always very into conservation, and he was also into the whole ranching side. So this piece of land came up for sale, and my dad bought it, and we moved here in 1992. It's 3,000 acres.
Sure.
Which is small for this area. It sounds large, but it's quite small for this area. And we moved here with truckloads of cattle and horses and sheep and a pet camel and a pet ostrich and the whole shebang.
Like
we moved
Noah's
here.
Ark.
Yeah, like Noah's Ark, exactly. And we lived in tents. We put all of our kit into a container, lived in tents. The animals all had stables built for them. We each had a tent and a fly sheet with my grandmother's antique dining room table underneath it as our dining area.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I was probably about 17 when we moved here. And then my dad just started. He had this vision of creating something that blended in with the environment. He didn't want a lodge that sort of stood out. So Ol Malo is situated on the edge of an escarpment, beautiful escarpment with a beautiful view. And he didn't want it to be an eyesore in the middle of this beautiful landscape. So he just started piecing it together a little bit at a time. He had a tractor and a trailer. He had a team of about 16 what we call fundies, which are builders.
Yeah.
And every day the tractor and trailer would head off down to the river and come back with sand, and then the next day it would head off and come back with wood, and then the next day it would head off and come back with natural rock. And my dad would just sit on the edge of the escarpment and be like, right, we're going to put the sitting room here and the dining room here, and he literally just pieced it together sort of into the environment. So we've got rocks that are part of the walls, and they just literally pieced it together slowly.
And so when you got there, there was nothing there, absolutely nothing, just a bare piece of land.
Nothing here. Yeah, sure. just a 3,000 acre piece of land which he'd bought. Wow. And immediately, obviously we're surrounded by the Samburu tribe here.
Yeah.
So immediately he started working very closely with them, employing them, providing them with water. We put in boreholes, or a borehole. So he provided them with water, helped them out. So immediately he started getting involved with the whole local community. And then Ol Malo was just pieced together. We started off with one room, and then we had our first guests, and the whole family was there to meet them.
When were the first guests? When did the first guests arrive?
93.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. And then those same first guests came back every year for a long time. So
Wow.
and then slowly we just added as we went along. So, so we ended up with 4 rooms at the lodge, and a swimming pool. And then we built Ol Malo. He built Ol Malo House in about 2003 as a way. He didn't want to expand on what we already had. He wanted to sort of double the occupancy rates, but keep the exclusivity. So, so that's how it all started.
Sure. Wow. What a inspiring sort of vision to just go there, look at it. The view from there is amazing. I can confirm that 100%. I think it's one of the more iconic views for an African lodge, especially from their pool. So yeah, he definitely had a great vision with that. And the whole family was involved right from the very start back then?
The whole family was involved from the start. I mean, we were obviously all away at boarding school, so we'd sort of come and go. But we were all very much involved, and it was all, very much family discussions. Where do we put this? Where do we put that? My dad would be, we'd all be tripping down the rocks on the cliff edge, and my dad would say, I'm going to put the swimming pool here, right on the edge of the cliff. And we were like, it'll end up at the bottom of the cliff, Dad. It's not going to work. But he just had this vision, and he just went for it.
Sure.
And now that I'm grown up with my own kids, when my dad moved here when he was 50, so essentially starting again at the age of 50 when your kids are at the most expensive time of their schooling. And now that I've got my own kids, I realize what a feat that actually was. Because it's scary to start all over with nothing, with no guarantee that it's going to, be a success. But he just went for it. He just wanted to do it, and he just went for it. I think he begged, borrowed, and stole from whoever he could to start it. And then, every time they got a little bit more money, it went back into the lodge, and every time they got a little bit more, and it sort of started like that. And then, his dream of combining tourism, conservation, and ranching all sort of, came into place. So that's how it all started.
With the right mindset and the right passion and drive, you can achieve anything, and obviously that's what he had. I mean, look at it today. It's amazing. You guys are doing an amazing job there, and staying there and having that family feel is amazing. I've never had that anywhere else in any other lodge that I've been to, and you can definitely feel that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole sort of principle behind it was to sort of welcome people as guests in our home, as opposed to tourists in a lodge. So it's very much that whole family feel. All of our activities are centered around, what we enjoyed doing as kids. So we've got a tree house, for instance, in the middle of the ranch, which is literally just a platform in a tree, for sort of sleep outs under the stars. And the reason we did that, because when we were kids, my dad built us a tree house because he didn't want us sleeping on the ground, but he didn't necessarily want to come with us when we wanted to camp out. So all of those sort of things that we do here, riding horses, riding camels, is what we did when we were growing up as kids. So we sort of take our guests on that same sort of very personal, very exclusive experience. Fly camping on the river, sleeping under the stars, doing all of that sort of stuff. And the lovely thing is that, having your own place like this, you can do that. Whereas in national parks and things, you're slightly more limited as to what you can do. So, that's the benefit of it as well.
I always refer to kind of the Laikipia, like your ranches and things like that, as amazing playgrounds where you can go up there and just have the most amazing fun. And at the same time, you've got wildlife around you, and you've got that freedom to do that. So it's very cool. We love sending our guests up to that region and to you guys to do that and just explore and as you say, do the things that you as locals love doing. That's a very cool
thing.
thing.
So, because there's so much more to Africa than just the big five.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the Big
100%.
Five is awesome, but there's so much more to it, you know. And here we just have the freedom to really do all of that, you know, sort of camping on with horses, you know, camping, just walking and camping with camels and where cars can't get to, you know, all of that sort of thing is, you know, stuff that we all used to do when we were kids, and we just wanted to continue it because in an ever-growing corporate world, that sort of those things are slightly, you know, disappearing a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you know, you touched briefly on the community aspect, the conservation aspect, and the vision that your dad had with that. Just talk us through a little bit about the community work that you guys do and the conservation work that you do, and obviously being a cattle ranch and a wildlife reserve at the same time. How does that work?
So I'll start with the community. So yeah, obviously, you know, living in a very remote destination like this, you know, you're surrounded by local community people. The land around us, to the north is all Samburu land. So you need to develop good relationships with the people. You need to, you know, give a bit of give and take. You know, that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, that you go and hand out money to them or whatever. You just sort of work closely with them. So my dad's always been good at that. He's always had a very good relationship with the local people. I mean, we've had people working for us since 1985 and before. Like, I grew up with some of our staff that still work for us now. So, you know, that's also, you know, so it's like a sort of a big and extended family.
Yeah.
The local community, when my sister runs our Samburu Trust.
Yeah.
So she, in the drought of, I think it was, when was that? The 1999, I think, was a very massive drought in Kenya. And, you know, people, the Samburu community were coming in hordes because everyone was starving and, you know, needed help and needed medical help and everything. And my sister had just finished university and she was here and she started sort of helping them. And, you know, we were giving out food and, you know, we were providing free medical care for them. And then it sort of became, well, you know, you need to do something for this. So she started off with she used to get the kids in to paint pictures, the Samburu kids. They painted pictures and then she started selling it to the guests. And then the guests would see the kids painting pictures, buy their pictures, and then we'd use that money to buy food for them, and they'd just come in every day and we'd give them all lunch. And that kind of, it built from there. And then she started doing a sort of a whole beading project. So then the Samburu women would come in, do the beading, and in return get food. And that's how it started. Now she's got a big workshop. She's got outlets all over the world that she does projects for. The Samburu women do the beading, all these different beading projects. And so that has kind of continued from then. And it's also branched out in the, you know, medical. We've got a clinic here which we provide free medical care for them all. So,
wow.
You know, burns are very, very common. You know, just things like that. And we always provide vehicles for them to take them to hospitals if they need. So it's sort of built up from there. And it's now expanded to employing warrior scouts who patrol the whole of the north, you know, checking for poaching, wounded elephants, you know, baby elephants stuck in ditches, that sort of thing. So it's sort of grown from a very small organic place into like quite a large sort of thing. I mean, my sister, her warrior scouts patrol the whole of northern Kenya now.
Sure.
So I think last year they rescued, I think it was something like 23 elephants who had fallen into wells and, you know, things like that.
Sure.
So it's sort of organically grown over time. You see what I mean? So that's our community work. And then obviously the conservation, my dad always was into conservation. So our ranch is also a conservation area. But we also now have the helicopters. So they are very instrumental in doing a lot of the darting, relocation of rhinos, darting wounded animals, wounded elephants, that sort of thing.
Okay.
As well as providing medical assistance for the local people. So if anybody, gets hurt or burnt or whatever, our helicopters are used a lot for that sort of thing as well.
And Andrew was even involved in rescuing people during the floods last year, I think it was. So, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a truck stuck in the middle of a river with people stuck on top of the truck. And then he'd go and hover and they'd pull one in at a time. And so that happens a lot. That happens a few times a week where we're using helicopters to help people and animals.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And the wildlife that is there just naturally occurs. You're on a corridor. Or what was the origins of the wildlife there?
Yeah, so our ranch that we have was originally part of what is now Loisaba.
Okay.
Which is now owned by the Nature Conservancy. So it's sort of part of a bigger conservation area. And it is a corridor actually, because the animals will pass through from Loisaba and then through us and then head up north. So even though Loisaba have now fenced down their boundary because they've introduced rhino into that conservancy, but there are corridors left for the game which are very carefully monitored. Okay. And the animals will figure out how to use the corridors and then they can still migrate through. And my sister's very instrumental now in increasing the corridors right across the north. So that the migration of animals is still very much, top priority. Yeah.
And any talk of rhinos on Ol Malo or opening up those corridors to rhinos?
Yeah, no talk of opening up corridors to rhinos as yet, just because, they are so protected. So Ol Malo getting rhinos, I think the rule is you have to have a certain number of acreage per one rhino. Which means I think we'd be allowed 2 rhinos or something on us. Yeah. So it's not really feasible expense-wise to do that. Yeah. There was talk of us going in, being fenced in with them for the rhino, but I think it's just easier for the rhinos to be in a sort of a smaller contained area just because they are so highly protected.
Yeah.
And the expense then of protecting them is massive because they've all got to have keepers and you have to up the security and all of that. So there's no talk of that at the moment. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we've briefly touched on the family aspect of Ol Malo and that family feel that you get when you arrive there and the experiences and all of that. So talk us through a little bit about the more experiences that guests have when they come and stay there with you.
Yeah.
What is a typical 3 or 4 night stay? Up at Ol Malo? What does that look like?
So we do a lot of adventure stuff from here. So we do a lot of walking. We walk out for bush breakfast with camels. Park ourselves under an acacia tree in the middle of the ranch, and then a full breakfast is cooked for you on a small fire, under a separate tree. So that's one of the things we do. We've also got a lovely river, so we do lots of river walks, lunches on the river, that sort of thing. Lots of horse riding.
Different levels of horse?
Yeah, different levels of horse. We can go from complete beginners, people that have never ridden, to advanced riders. We do what we call our Ol Malo nomads. So, that could be like a 2 or 3 night sleep out, either with horses or just walking. So guests will spend a night here, then they'll walk to a location maybe on the river. We have a conservation. We work, obviously working together with the community, we can use their land as well. So, we'll employ a lot of the neighboring Samburu people to help us with the camp. We walk in there, then guests get to experience like the proper cultural the proper cultural stuff, the stuff that's really real. So you get to visit people's homes, you get to go to singing wells, you camp sort of in an area where the local people are as well. And then from there you can walk. Usually we walk down the river or up the river. And the camels move the camp. So the camels will pack everything up. Everything gets loaded onto camels, sent up the river, and then you walk into your second campsite on the second night, which is in a completely different location. And again, from each of the campsites, there's lots of lovely walks, lots of lovely views, lots of lovely rocks to go and sit on for sundowners. Yep. So, those are sort of our more adventurous things. And then out of the lodge, we can also, we do sleep out. So we do a night out in the treehouse under the stars, which is an awesome evening. And it's so popular, like it's full every night. People absolutely love it. It's very simple, but very comfortable.
So you also have a leopard ride. Explain that. It's a treehouse. Yeah.
So it's a boskia tree, and then we built a platform in the top. It's got a sort of a pull-up door to get in. So when you go in there, you can pull up the door, so you're sort of enclosed. But it's like a platform, and we just make up a double mattress, or however many people can sleep in that. We've squeezed in 6 people, tops. And then we have like comfortable bedrolls with duvets and feather pillows, and you just you're just right under the stars. The treehouse is in the middle of the ranch, so you really feel, far away from everything. Our guide will sleep nearby in a car, and the guests have a walkie-talkie to call them if they need in the night. So it's just a nice experience. And then underneath the platform, we've got a sort of a flat area where we build a big fire. So you can have a sort of a campfire dinner with poiki pots, poiki campfire dinner. So it's a really magical experience, actually, and people absolutely love it. It's super popular. Obviously weather dependent. We can't do it in the rain. But apart from that, it's, you're just out there under the stars. It's just, it's magical.
And you're overlooking a dam, so you've got animals coming down and things like that.
You're overlooking a small water hole. So people have had herds of elephants walk underneath. People have seen lion from the treehouse. We had a honeymoon couple once who slept so soundly they missed a whole herd of elephants walking underneath the treehouse in the night. So it's just and then from there, the next morning, sometimes we'll send the horses down if people are riders, and they can ride up from the treehouse, or we send camels down, and then they go on a sort of a big camel hike and have breakfast on the way back. So we're very, very flexible, and we sort of just fit in with what people want to do. And we never plan anything until they get here, and then we just plan everything as we go along
with them. I love that. I love that flexibility. When we were there in December, and half the group wanted to ride, other half wanted to do walking, and then we all met up around the fire with a big slab of meat on the fire, and I love that flexibility.
So we do a lot of that because we get a lot of very mixed groups. So we'll get sort of multi-gen groups with grandparents and kids, and parents and as well. So and so we do sort of a ride, walk, camel, drive mix to wherever we're going. So it'll either be a sundowner or a breakfast or lunch or whatever. And we just sort of figure it out on the day as to what everyone feels like doing and all the different things. We've got beautiful spots on the ranch for all sorts of different things, sundowners, and we've got our big rock Lotten, which gives you 360-degree views, which is a lovely hike, and people either do it at sunset or sunrise. And because we're private, we can do night game drives as well. So you can head out with the spotlight and see what you can find. Been seeing a lot of lion recently. We also have a leopard hide, which is also another sleep out experience. And again, when we were kids, we always used to go. My dad built a little leopard hide, and we always used to go try and sit up all night with our cups of soup and wait for the leopard to come in. So that's quite fun as well.
Yeah.
So it's all we just try and keep it as fun and as as light as possible, really. There's no set times, no set meal times, no set, we just sort of go with the flow.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And then for your very, very active people, your 3-peak challenge, what is that?
3-peak challenge. It's on Strava, actually. It's a 8K sort of run walk.
Sure.
And it goes to 3 peaks. So our lodge is obviously on 1 peak.
Yeah.
And then we've got Lottom, which is the big rock which you see in our view.
Yeah.
Which is peak number 1. And then we've got another hill sort of directly opposite the lodge, which is peak number 2, and then back to the house for peak number 3. People have everyone loves it, but some people have the really competitive ones have said it's not fair because occasionally there's an elephant in the way and you have to go around, or
That's part of the challenge.
But it's part of the challenge. Yeah, it's all part of the adventure.
Yeah.
And some people walk it, some people run it, some people, I think our fastest time's been 56 minutes so far, but most people do it in about an hour and a half.
Okay. And obviously you're running with a local Samburu guide.
You run with the local Samburu guide, and he just keeps to the pace of the guests. So
okay.
We just sort of figure out, how fast they want to go or whatever.
Perfect.
But you can't run the whole way because there's no sort of cut track to run on. So it's sort of skipping over rocks and skidding down the hills and then climbing up the steep rock and then
okay.
Yeah. So it's quite fun.
When you say 56 minutes, that's pretty impressive.
56 minutes is the fastest.
Sure. Okay.
But I think most people will do it in about an hour 24, an hour 15 occasionally.
Sure.
Yeah, it sort of depends on fitness levels and, sure-footedness, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, important.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk to your brother Andrew about the helicopters, but you guys do multi hours up into full day up into Lake Turkana and those areas, but just using the helicopters around the ranch and that for guests, what sorts of things can people do around the ranch with the helicopters if they're not wanting to do a full day out?
So the helicopters came about because Andrew my brother always wanted to fly. So when he started off in a fixed wing, and then he used to fly up to Lake Turkana in his fixed wing and think, I wish I could just land all the way along here, because the Seguta Valley, we sit sort of in a really good place to access the Seguta Valley, which is the northern end of the Great Rift Valley.
Yeah.
So that's how it all started. And then he bought 1 helicopter and started to do trips with that. And now we have 4 R66s and 1 R44. So we've got 5 helicopters now. Again, we're the only lodge in Kenya that has helicopters here. And I think the best thing about the helicopters is that the pilots are also hosts and managers at the lodge. So people really get to know the person, the pilot. It's not just like pitching up, and our pilots are also guides. They're all Kenyan born and bred. They all speak Swahili. They all know the country really, really well. And it makes a big difference. Yeah. When you get to know them. So we do loads of different trips from here. We can do half-hour trips. We can do amazing sundowner trips. And then we've also got the full day up the Seguta Valley to Lake Turkana, which is the most popular one. Yeah. But we will customize anything to suit anybody. So if somebody just wants a 15-minute flip in a helicopter, we can organize that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then your husband's little bar and his gin and beer and all of that. What's the story behind that? Because that was great fun. I must say that was a very cool thing.
Was fun. I think during it was a COVID project for him. Learning to make beer and things like that. And then when we just try and be as sustainable and self-sufficient as possible. And so I think that's kind of where it sort of came from. And then it sort of, started off as, him brewing the beer in a little shed, and then, we got a bigger one, and then we thought, oh, it'd be quite cool to have a bar in here, and so it's sort of gone from there. It's purely just for our guests and here, so it's not sold or anything. And it's just nice for people to be able to, taste the Ol Malo beer and the Ol Malo gin, and our beer's all named after, funny little family jokes. And we have a really cool little, which we call the NFD, the Northern Frontier Distillery. Except it's not really a proper distillery, but it's just like a little bar where, people can go and hang out and watch the sun go down and have an Ol Malo gin and an Ol Malo beer. So that's really cool. And I think it's just, it's just quite nice to be as self-sufficient as possible. You're being on a ranch, we've got our own beef and our own lamb and our own vegetables. So if you can make it as self-sufficient and as possible, then it makes everyone's life easier. And I think it's also fun for people to see that lodges still do that.
Bit more relaxed, let your hair down and have a bit of fun. It's
exactly.
I know
exactly.
We enjoyed the gin, and we definitely enjoyed the beers. So he's done a good job with those for sure.
Yeah. And we've got the Ol Malo House and Ol Malo Lodge. Sometimes we bring everybody over together and we have like a big social in the brew shed, or if there's a rugby match on, we can all go and watch the rugby in there. And so it's just a really fun little addition. Again, we always try and do things that are different to what everybody else is doing. So we just wanted another angle,
Yeah. And you've got kids, your brother's got kids, and does your sister have kids as well?
Yes, she's got kids as well.
Are they all gonna be getting involved in the lodge?
Probably not all of them. We've got one son who's involved in the lodge. He's now flying the helicopters, and he also manages and hosts here. Our daughter, no, she's a teacher in Nairobi. And the youngest son, don't know yet. My sister's kids are all already very involved in her whole Samburu Trust business. They're young, they're 16 and 13, but they're already completely involved in that whole side of the business. They both speak fluent Samburu.
Amazing.
Yeah, and they're very involved in that side. But we always have family around when guests are here. So the guests will, they'll go riding with Chulu, my sister-in-law, and then they'll, go in the helicopter with Andrew, or Oscar, who's our son, and then they'll come back, and then there'll be little kids, the smaller kids all sort of around the pool area and stuff. So the guests are very much involved in our family life when they're here, which is quite cool. And we all have different sort of things that we do. So Chulu manages the horses and all the livestock on the ranch. So, she does all the rides with people. She manages all of the nomad safaris. Then obviously Andrew does the helicopters and most of the ranch stuff. And then the lodges we all help out with, managing and hosting in the lodges. So, you might have breakfast with one of us, lunch with another of us, and then, it kind of goes like
Get
that.
To know everybody.
Get to know everybody, yeah. So everyone arrives as guests and leaves as friends, which is quite nice.
Or don't want to leave, like we didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Annie, thank you so much. It's amazing listening to the stories and everything that goes into running places like that. I loved our time up there with you guys when we were there last year. And I know our guests absolutely love it. So thank you to you and everybody else involved for looking after our guests so well and doing everything so passionately. it is great fun. And as you say, there is so much more to Africa than just trying to tick off the big five. And it's places like Ol Malo that we love to send our guests to just go and explore like a local and just go and experience what else Africa has to offer. And you guys definitely do that very, very well. So thank you so much for looking after everybody, and many, many more guests coming your way.
Great. Keep sending them.
Perfect.
I hope you enjoyed listening to that and learning more about the incredible work being done up at Ol Malo. In the next episode, I chat to Alex Walker from Alex Walker Syrian, owner of some of our favorite camps in Kenya and Tanzania.